If you knew that your biometric data, including physical and behavioural characteristics, were being harvested by a regime halfway across the globe, how would you react? Is that a violation of privacy? If so, will you try to resist it? Or will you not care? This is the reality faced by more than 1 billion people around the world, who are monthly users of the video-based social influencing platform TikTok. Owned by Beijing-headquartered ByteDance, the app will now collect biometric data from its users, according to a June 2nd update to the app's privacy policy. In this brave new techno-dystopia, anything is possible, said Anders Kaur, publisher of the Journal of Political Risk, in a June 5 opinion piece calling for the app's ban. In its privacy policy, TikTok added a subsection to its Information We Collect Automatically section titled Image and Audio Information. The new section says it will harvest from user content, identifying the objects and scenery that appear, the existence and location within an image of face and body features and attributes, the nature of the audio and the text of the words spoken in your user content. The section also states we may collect biometric identifiers and biometric information as defined under US laws, such as face prints and voice prints, from your user content. According to Wallroom Media, at least 100 million of TikTok's 1 billion monthly users are US residents. The app has been downloaded more than 2.6 billion times. In January of 2021 alone, it was downloaded 62 million times. ByteDance brought in $5 million in revenue back to Beijing from US users in 2020 alone. The app also brings in more than 20 million unique visitors over the age of 18 from US mobile devices each month. Yet more than 32% of its overall user base is between the ages of 10 and 19. Users generally show signs of addiction to using the platform. The average day screen time for users is 52 minutes a day, yet in the 4 to 15 age bracket, that number raises to 80 minutes. The average number of times the app is opened each day is 8, and 83% of all users have uploaded a video. Considering the new policy update, this is even more unsettling. In England, former Children's Commissioner Anne Longfield filed a $1 billion class action lawsuit against ByteDance in December of 2020, alleging personal information was harvested from UK children under the age of 13. The policy says data is harvested explicitly for content moderation, for demographic classification, for content and ad recommendations. However, face prints and voice prints are not specifically defined in the policy, which also claims where required by law, we will seek any required permissions from your prior to any such collection. Unfortunately, for US users, there is no federal law governing biometric data. Only a few states, among which are New York, Illinois, California and Texas, have legislation for biometrics. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation defines biometric data as a special category of personal data consisting of personal data resulting from specific technical processing relating to the physical, physiological or behavioural characteristics of a natural person, which allows or confirms the unique identification of that natural person, such as facial images or fingerprint data. TechCrunch says despite the update, ByteDance already permitted itself to harvest an enormous amount of data on its users, such as location data based on your SIM card and IP addresses and GPS, your use of TikTok itself and all the content you create or upload, the data you send in messages on its app, metadata from the content you upload, cookies, the app and file names on your device, battery state and even your keystroke patterns and rhythms, among other things. And that's not all. Beijing also harvests the so-called information you choose to provide, such as registration info, username, age, language, etc., profile info, name, photo, social media accounts, all your user-generated content on the platform, your phone and social network contacts, payment information, plus the text, images and video found in the device's clipboard. I'm waiting for Huawei's new phone with a pinprick function that collects DNA, quipped Anders Corr. Over the last few decades, our government has allowed Americans to devolve into the Wild West again, with China's corporations being the new tornado that rips through entire communities and their personal data. When TechCrunch asked TikTok for comment as to what the data would be collected for, the company only responded with a boilerplate about its commitment to transparency, with some links to corporate messaging propaganda. In February of 2020, former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said ByteDance and other CCP-controlled companies such as Huawei are Trojan horses for Chinese intelligence in comments at the Munich Security Conference. Did you know that China poses a substantial national security risk to countries due to its influence on the global supply chains? So how have countries tried to counteract this? In an interview with the Epoch Times, Hong Kong financial analyst Catherine Zhang Tianming stated that America has been leading the decoupling of global supply chains from China and strengthening US supply chains with South Korea and Taiwan. On May 21st, President Joe Biden and South Korean President Moon Jae-in issued a joint statement in which both leaders reaffirmed their mutual commitment to cooperate in various fields such as global health and technology, while also building supply chain resilience. The statement was issued as part of the US-South Korea summit, which was attended by several corporations from the Asian nation. We agreed to cooperate to increase resiliency in our supply chains, including in priority sectors such as semiconductors, eco-friendly EV electric vehicle batteries, strategic and critical materials, and pharmaceuticals. We also agreed to work together to increase the global supply of legacy chips for automobiles and to support leading-edge semiconductor manufacturing in both countries, according to the joint statement. The fact sheet published by the White House states that areas of cooperation in the tech supply chain include creating a US-South Korea supply chain task force to implement and review bilateral cooperation in the field of high-tech manufacturing and supply chains, mutual and complementary investments in semiconductors, high-capacity batteries and auto-grade chips, including across the entire supply chain of the materials, parts and equipment needed to manufacture these products. Joint research and development (R&D) in next-generation 6G, artificial intelligence, biotechnology and quantum technology. Securing 5G and 6G networks, the US has committed $2.5 billion to R&D investments in this sector, and the two nations will work together on open radio access network technology development and standardization. US support for South Korea's development of its own navigation system, the Korean positioning system, and interoperability with America's global positioning system. Promoting coordination in the supply chain of overseas nuclear markets. Moon's entourage included top business executives from the country who announced their US investment plans at the summit. The top two battery suppliers in Korea, SK Innovation and LG Energy Solution, will be investing about $14 billion in separate and joint projects. Hyundai Motor committed $7.4 billion to expand the production of electric vehicles and recharging infrastructure in America. Chipmaker SK Hynix will spend $1 billion to build a large-scale R&D center in Silicon Valley focused on AI and NAND solutions. Samsung announced a $17 billion investment in a chip foundry plant in Austin, Texas, which is slated for completion by 2024. Equipped with an advanced 5-nanometer chip manufacturing technology process, the plant will boost chip production in the United States and help to prevent a repeat of the current chip shortage issue. The US is also developing strong economic ties with Taiwan. On May 20, US Secretary of Commerce Gina M. Raimondo participated in a semiconductor virtual summit that included Taiwanese company TSMC, the world's largest dedicated independent semiconductor foundry. In May 2020, TSMC announced that it would be investing $12 billion to build a factory in Phoenix, Arizona. The location will use the company's 5-nanometer semiconductor manufacturing technology to produce chips beginning in 2024. Taipei Times reported that TSMC also plans to manufacture next-generation 2-nanometer and smaller chips at the Phoenix facility. A 3-nanometer production facility is being discussed as well, which would entail an additional investment of $23 to $25 billion. The US is also taking regulatory measures toward Chinese decoupling, including a May 15, 2019 executive order from then-President Donald Trump calling for all information and communications technology and services supply chains in the country be secured. It barred American companies from using telecommunication equipment deemed to be a threat to national security. The order eventually led to Chinese tech firm Huawei being excluded from the American telecommunications supply chain. In March this year, the Biden administration further restricted American companies from supplying components to Huawei. On April 21, 2021, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee passed the Strategic Competition Act of 2021, S1169, by 21-1 vote. One of the focus areas of the bill is to expand the scope of the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, an organization that scrutinizes financial transactions to identify threats to national security. The law would bring American universities receiving Chinese grants and contracts under scrutiny, Reuters reported. On May 12, 2021, the Senate passed the Endless Frontier Act bill aimed at boosting US investments in technology to compete with China. Over a 5-year period, $100 billion will be dedicated towards advanced research projects and $10 billion will be spent on setting up countrywide technology hubs. According to Tian Ming, the legislation passed in the last couple of years constitutes a regulatory and legal mechanism for America to decouple from China. As South Korea's ties with the United States deepen, it will also likely gradually decouple from China. China's communist regime is aiming to bypass the US federal government's aggressive foreign policies. Do you know how? In February 2020, then US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had warned at the National Governors Association winter meeting that competition with China is not just a federal issue. He said that the Chinese regime had methodically analysed America's open system, assessed the country's vulnerabilities, and decided to exploit our freedoms to gain advantages over the US at the local, state, and federal levels. In fact, the Chinese government has done just that. Chinese state-run Global Times recently published an article that hailed American state governments and Chinese provinces for seeking to boost subnational economic and trade cooperation via subnational deals amidst tense bilateral ties, triggered by Washington's hardline policies towards Beijing. Representatives from New York, Iowa, California and other states participated in an online forum for economic cooperation run by China's Ministry of Commerce, along with around 150 government officials and business representatives from numerous Chinese provinces. Previously, Pompeo said that a Chinese government-backed think tank in Beijing produced a report in 2019 that classified all 50 governors in America based on their attitude towards China as friendly, hardline, or ambiguous. Whether you are viewed by the CCP as friendly or hardline, know that it's working you. Know that it's working the team around you. Competition with China is happening inside of your state, and it affects our capacity to perform America's vital national security functions, he said. Yet it seems the governors that participated in the online forum are unaware of this. New York State Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul said that they have had a long partnership with China and that they look forward to continuing this relationship in the future. She added that the state is committed to promoting win-win economic development. Chicago's Democratic Governor Lori Lightfoot stated that the city plans to seek cooperation with China as part of its coronavirus disease 2019 economic recovery plan that includes investments in life sciences, food processing, transportation and manufacturing. Mi Xingyu, a research fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation of China's Ministry of Commerce, accused anti-China forces in the United States of trying to decouple economic ties between the two countries. But there are strong complementarities in bilateral trade, and they will never be able to eliminate this reality, no matter what the US federal government does, Mi said. Such a cooperative approach from US states stood in a stark contrast to the US federal government's aggressive policies toward China, including clampdowns on Chinese businesses, reported the Global Times. In fact, this cooperation did not start recently. In April 2019, California's Democrat Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis took part as an invited guest at a One Belt, One Road Subnational forum held in Beijing. She said it was an honour to attend the conference and advocated for a partnership between California and China with regard to climate change. Ironically, China is currently the largest polluter in the world. In June 2019, Democrat Representative Ted Liu sponsored H.R. 3571, the City and State Diplomacy Act, which seeks to establish an Office of Subnational Diplomacy within the Department of State. The office would supervise federal support for engagement by state and municipal governments with foreign government. The bill is yet to be passed.